On today's episode, we're putting ourselves in the shoes of a new client who might be meeting with more than one advisor and trying to evaluate what's the best fit. And this topic came to mind recently. I was actually at a conference, and long story short, I was reconnected with the very first person in the financial services industry that I interned for, and this was about 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I know it's a small world moment,
Yeah.
right? We don't live in the same town as each other. It was, anyways, and we got a chance. We had a phone call and we were catching up, and she was talking to me about when she first went independent as an RIA and how she was starting to grow her business. And at that time, seminars were really popular. There are so many advisors who hold seminars. And as she would try out different topics, she found one that resonated a lot with just individuals, which is like, okay, so I go to meet with an advisor and I say hello. And then what? What happens next? Like, what are the questions I should be asking that I don't know that I should be asking? What should the expectations be? And for better or worse, what we find in the financial services industry is that it is not a one size fits all. The experience that you expect, it's not like you go into, for example, a McDonald's anywhere across the world, you're going to have a similar experience. The menu is going to look somewhat the same. Well, it is the opposite experience, right? So for today's topic, we want to talk about, what do you say after you say hi? What happens next?
Right. What do you talk about? What do you need to know in that conversation? And I think there's a really useful moment in any professional, whether it's an attorney, an accountant, that say that first conversation, like to have all the questions ready. So by the end of that first talk, whether it's a call or an in-person meeting, you have clarity on this is the person for me, or nope, not what I need. I'm out of here. Right. And some of that is before you go to the meeting, a little bit of crystallizing. What are you looking for? For a financial advisor, you're looking for someone who is really going to help you build a plan for your future, bring you some confidence, invest money for you. Or is it just someone who you already know how you want to invest? You just want them to do the trades for you.
Right. Or do you have a burning question? We have people that knock on our door and they're really prompted to come because maybe they're receiving an inheritance. They have a family member that recently passed away. They have no idea what the tax implications are, how to transfer the funds, et cetera. So that you might also come to this point not because you felt like it was a good idea to have a financial advisor, but because you have a burning question and something that you need answered really quickly.
Yeah, you need an answer. And for us, and I think a lot of advisors who try and be holistic and give you a good answer, whatever the question may be, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to say, hey, I need to understand your life. I need to understand what you're about and where you're headed. Other questions are, you just tell them, this is the answer, easy enough.
Right.
So today's episode I think is exciting. We kind of made a list of, I think we have 7 items or so of kind of things that should be on your checklist when you meet with a financial advisor of topics you want to discuss and the answers you might receive, and whether that's good or bad or how that might be different for you.
Right. And, it occurs to me that when I think about the clients that come and knock on our door or we meet with virtually, like how they come to us. And we have clients that are very well researched. A financial advisor, especially those that hold different certifications, are discoverable. So you can get into the background of the financial advisor, recognize their experience, especially if there's been any negative track record for that financial advisor. So for those who like to sit down and do the research and do their homework ahead of time, that is one way that you might just start in finding an advisor. One of the things that we're trying to do here at Tricord is really have a solid presence for our Google business profile, because we find that a lot of people too just jump on the internet and say financial advisor near me, right? How many people do that? It's so easy. And so they want to, maybe it comes up with 5 different options. And so you go about making an appointment with each one of those. It might be, I would say the next highest or the most likely source is by referral. You have a friend, somebody that works with a financial advisor. What's your experience been? Would you recommend that I go to them? So
yeah,
it's a good way to get started.
So good. Yeah. And that's how you find a name. So once you got a name, once you have a meeting or a phone call, you sit down, you say hello, like you said, and then what? And I think the first thing I would want to talk about is what services they provide. To say, do you do my taxes? Like, are they going to be like a CPA for you? Do they do the investing? Do they do tax planning? Do they build you a financial plan for your future? What about your cash flow? What about Social Security? What about Medicare? Not that you have to touch on all those, but just asking the questions like, what are the services that you provide?
Yep. Estate planning comes up a lot. Risk
Right.
management comes up a lot. So taking a look at insurance, and different offices offer different things. You might very well go to a financial advisor that only works on investment advice, and they really don't venture any further than that. And one of the things that we like to talk about here is just kind of goals based financial planning or vision based financial planning, where we want to come at it from a whole or comprehensive, all encompassing. Now, it doesn't mean that, for example, like at Tricord, we don't have CPAs on staff. We work closely with CPAs, those of our clients or a firm here locally that we have a great relationship with. So we have those resources available, but that might be something that's really critical to a client, is that they came because they wanted tax planning, not just tax strategy. They wanted tax preparation, or so there's even lots of layers underneath those broader buckets: tax, estate planning, investment, risk management. What am I missing? Retirement planning.
Right.
There are lots of specialties within this industry.
Right. And some things you don't realize you need until you're there. Often, my background being an attorney, someone will sit down, we're talking about investments, we're talking about financial planning, and then we talk about estate planning. And I mentioned that I'm an attorney, and they just say, "Oh, I need that too." It wasn't top of mind, but it's definitely on the list. And I love it when we can, deal with the retirement planning, we deal with the estate planning, we can deal with the investment management. We try and be holistic, but not everybody is, and not everyone needs that. So I think it's just a key thing to say what services they provide, and does that line up with what you need as a client?
Yeah, and there are individuals that do a la carte. They have a CPA firm that they work with. They have an investment advisor that they work with. They have a separate estate planning attorney. And there's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We find that it's more convenient, and we find that there's more of a comprehensive, holistic approach. And so the financial advisor role that we like to hold is kind of like a quarterback, or going back to that McDonald's illustration, you're looking for the value meal, right? Like it's all coming together in
Yeah.
one. Could you order the fries separately from the drink? Sure, but you might save a little bit by bundling it all together.
Right.
So I don't want to compare us to fast food. I'm going to move
Right.
away from that
You got two of
illustration.
those. That's great. All right. So the next one, I always like to. So first, what services are offered? The second one is how do they get paid? And to me,
Mm,
this is such a unique aspect of the financial services industry. McDonald's, we'll just stay on that analogy. I think it's a good one. You know how they get paid. You give them money, right? Easy enough. That's all
yeah,
that's going to happen next. Whereas in financial,
straightforward. Yep.
straightforward, yeah. In financial advice, there are some people that work on commissions. So they'll propose a product, an insurance, an annuity, a stock, and it feels kind of like it's free and they're helping you out. They probably get paid a commission on the back end. Others,
Right.
they do a flat fee that just says, for my work, here's what you'll pay me, period. That's what it'll be. Others will do what's called assets under management. As probably the most common one in this industry says, if you will, trust us with your 401k or trust us with your investments, we will manage them. And as we manage them, we'll charge some sort of a fee on that account. And that's how we get paid. But it's important. And I don't want to think in this podcast we're going to talk about what's better or worse. I think it's more so just understanding,
Hmm.
how they get paid, what they're going to get paid, how much you're actually going to pay to them. And then you can assess, like, is this valuable to me? Am I
Right.
willing to them? I'm willing for them to get paid in this way, whether it's a commission or not, knowing, are they sales? Are they advice? What are they? So
Right.
knowing how to get paid and then being comfortable with the amount. So I think that's a key one. Every initial meeting we have, we talk about it, right in that meeting. I think getting that out in the open as early as possible, I think is really helpful to help a client
Yeah, I
get
think
clarity.
ideally the advisor is forthcoming about it and say, hey, as a part of this conversation, we want to talk about how we get paid. But not all advisors are. So you want to be equipped with asking that question. I think just in terms of kind of reading labels here, probably two the most common you're going to find is fee based or fee only advisor. Those would be two, and that's just them stating how they're compensated. But in general, the industry, there are commission products, and those you would want to be aware. Those would kind of give you a reminder that they have an incentive to sell you a very specific product or vehicle.
Yeah.
So,
And folks who are, say, in the insurance or annuity branch, if that's primarily what they do, then most of their income is probably through commissions. They
right.
probably still call themselves a financial advisor, but that's a different structure than somebody who's doing planning or investment management.
Right. It doesn't mean it can't give you good advice. You just want to be aware. It's interesting to know, how do you get paid? Because guess
Yep.
what? If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
It probably is. That's right. So the third one, so you've talked about the services, you've talked about how they get paid. The next, which I think is a really good one, is the role that they're going to play in your life.
Yeah.
And this is really important, not just in the service they do, but what they're going to the role they're going to fill in your life, in the sense that some people want a wise sage they're going to come to and say, tell me what I should do with my money, right? Others are looking for a coach to say, hey, I'm doing stuff, I am moving forward. I just need someone to come alongside me and, tune things up a bit. Others are looking for almost like a visioning partner to say, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what retirement looks like for me. I've had a relationship with money for the last 40, 50 years. And now I'm not sure. And I want to really vision and understand things I didn't know
Right.
existed. I want you to
Right.
bring new
I've
ideas
been
to me.
I've been growing this business and I've been working on this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm just putting money away and taking out what I need and just trying to drive the growth of this business. I haven't sat back and thought about strategy. How do I take the company to the next level, or how is this personally benefiting my finances? What's going to happen someday when I don't want to work anymore, right? And so the advisory role, and this is something that we're seeing across the industry. And we did another episode on the history of financial planning, which was really interesting to kind of look at the evolution of the role. And what, to bring us current, has been so impactful in the industry is the rise of fintech. So technology, and this is true of so many industries, that as an individual, you can manage your stock portfolio on your own and very easily and cost efficiently. So the reason why people are coming to financial advisors has started to steer in the direction of that kind of counselor, advice, coach, um, and that relational aspect of what we do is becoming more and more prominent. Certainly, there's a benefit to hiring an expert to manage your investment portfolio, 100%. Certainly, there's a benefit to hire somebody that has tax knowledge and not just tax preparation, but tax strategy, right? Those are all added benefits. But in general, we are also seeing this emphasis on the relationship. You want to work with somebody who you like, who you would listen to, and who ultimately they might have to give you some hard news as well as some good news. And so who's that person that you would trust?
Yeah. And that trust often takes time, but I think that's a really good key, is what you're looking for. Are you looking for someone who's going to be a large role in your life? We've had a number of clients when the spouse passes away, they call us the very next morning. And some of our staff, when they're new here, they've been a little surprised and say, wow, I didn't realize we would get called the very next morning. But the role that we could hold in people's lives is that close, that, they're calling us well before a whole other list of people in those types of situations. And it's a beautiful place to get to do that, but not all advisors do that, and not everyone wants that, and
Right.
so finding out what role are they ready to play in your life. And I like even the idea with visioning, man, that's so powerful for some folks. Others, they don't need that. They're not interested. And the big one, I think, is bringing those new ideas, those things you didn't know, having an advisor who brings those before you and explains them to you. And so you can then determine, hey, is this useful for me? The other one that is part of that role is kind of an educator. I think our role, and I think a lot of financial advisors, they're trying to educate the client to make sure the client can make the best choices. What we don't want is a client just to be dependent on us and saying, I don't know anything about my finances, just tell me what's best. Some relationships start like that. But man, if we've been working with a client for a while, I want them to understand key terms. I want them to understand how these financial things work. So we're really equipping them to take charge of their finances and, lean on us for all those pieces to get it done. But the more that they can take control, the better I think we've done at our job. So I see us as, having that coaching role a little bit, an
Right.
educator. So
I
finding
would
out
just,
what
this
you
is
want.
my little personal additive here. I like what you said about building trust. Nobody's going to walk into the first appointment and the first meeting and necessarily be able to identify this is somebody that I can trust for my future, right? And so trust takes time. And if you're meeting with somebody who's not willing to be patient and take that time with you, that would be a red flag to me. The other one that I'm just going to throw out there is humility. An advisor is a human. We don't know everything. So to have an advisor say, you know what, I'm not sure about that, or let me go look that up. I'm going to get back to you. Let me research that a little bit more. Now those who are more experienced probably have a greater wealth and breadth of knowledge and information. But I think that openness and that humility, if you can detect that in another person, is really valuable while you're developing this relationship, because it's a vulnerable and it's a highly personal space.
Yep.
And so you want them to be authentic and genuine and be knowledgeable, but only speak of the things that they are confident about. And if not, that they're willing to go and do the work to learn. I think that's important too.
Yep. No, that's great. And I think in the opposite, the negative, what you don't want, we've had clients come in that have met with other advisors before us and felt demeaned. They felt shamed. They felt like, oh, you've messed up. What have you done? Why would you do this? Oh, I got to come in and fix this mess. And I mean, maybe that's what somebody wants, but man, that's not what I want in my life. I think for most clients, that's not the voice that they're looking to bring into their life in their finances, one of shame and guilt and should have known better. Rather, someone who says, oh, let's start here, wherever you are. Let's start here. Let's build together. Man, that's such a different voice in your life.
And there's, you could be a person listening to this thing like, I really don't care about my stock portfolio. I really have no interest in how investments work. I really don't know what goes into creating a trust and or why I need one. Your interest level may be low in these factors, but they do play a part in your life. And you might agree listening to this that they are necessary. And I will say that the conversations that we have with our clients are broad and diverse. Some people really want to emphasize that coaching, that vision planning. We start all of our relationships with building a plan with their dreams and their goals in mind, right? And then we activate or we implement after that. And that's going to shift and change. We're going to have questions. We spend some time talking about retirement. Where should we live? Healthcare delivery. I mean, it runs the full gamut. And so if you're a person that's like, I want to trust somebody with my investments, I don't really want to know about them, that's okay too. You can still come with really important questions that are meaningful.
Right. So good. I love that. So the next one, and this is an interesting one that we have on the list, credentials, and this sometimes is alphabet soup behind their names. And we've even found that some folks really care about this. Where did you go to school? What's your degree in? Are you a certified financial planner? Are you, all the different alphabet soup items that can come behind your name? Others don't. It's not. They're not interested. They're interested more in what services you provide. They're interested in what you're going to do for me. And so I think it's a little bit personal item. I think that the certified financial planner. That's what I think we have 5 in our office that hold that designation. We see that as a fantastic designation. That means they have a breadth and a depth of knowledge in, I think they have like 7 different areas, but all the main areas that you would need for financial planning, they have an ability there and a knowledge base that I think makes it so useful that they're not going to miss something. They're not uninformed. So if I was looking for advisor, I would look for a CFP.
There was some rigor in passing an exam. So I would compare the CFP exam, not that it's the same, but if you were to sit down with someone who had gone to law school but not passed the bar. So, the ending exam is kind of the cumulative piece. And so the CFP is a gold standard in the industry because there is a robust exam. We obviously like it. We have several CFPs on staff, but there are other great credentials. There are those who specialize in retirement planning specifically. Jeremiah holds a JD. He has passed the bar. So that California licensed attorney, right? The JD after his name is important. What are some other ones?
Yeah, the chartered financial consultant is a big one. There's a few that have retirement income specialists. There's a few that you go through. And I think in the conversation, you don't have to know all this, right? You don't have to memorize these. But I think asking the question, what have you studied? What are your credentials? And then even ask the further question, like, how was that? Was that hard to get? How long did that take you? And if they say, oh, it was a weekend course. I did it up north and came back down. Okay, well, cool, neat. Or if they say, oh, it was 4 years of, I was working and studying at the same time. It accumulated. It ended in this giant test I had to take. I was so excited to pass it. Cool. That means something different. So I think just understanding their credentials. In this industry, you don't have to have graduated from college. You don't have to have an MBA. You don't have to have these other items to still call yourself a financial advisor. So understanding if that's important to you, I think those are some fair questions to ask about, just to get a sense of the advisor of what their education has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them will display them on their wall, and so you can come in and look at their list of degrees. But don't be afraid to ask, what's behind that? What does that certification mean? Or I saw these 3 different designations in your signature line. Can you tell me what they are? You might get a sense of what they're interested in or a specialty or an expertise. The other thing that I would say is that there are some advisory firms that work individually. So you meet with one advisor and they are your designated advisor, and that is the only advisor that you would expect to meet with. There are other advisory firms that work on a team-based approach, which is kind of how we approach things. So it could be in one case scenario where you meet with 2 advisors at a time or just one advisor, but there's really a team of 3 of us that kind of rotate, but we share all of the clients together. So that means that if somebody calls in and one of us is out of the office, you will still get served and your question will get answered. Another question to that, and it kind of relates to the service question, is being really tactical and practical. What happens when? What happens when I need to transfer some money from my investment account to my checking account? Who do I call? How does that work? What happens if I roll over this account to you? How long does that take? What does that process look like? Do I have to be here in person? Can we do it over DocuSign? Some of those really just practical questions that will serve as a convenience to you going forward.
Yeah. And those are not silly questions, because those are not standard answers in the industry, right? They're very different. Someone might say, oh, we do everything via DocuSign. Another advisor might say, well, you have to drive down to the office and we'll sign some paperwork and go from there. Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one that you would find out the answer to say, oh, I have to call this one person. If they're out of town, I can't get money. Or to say, oh, no, I have a whole team. And if I'm not here, you just call them. They'll be able to authorize whatever's needed. So that's a great one.
We had a new client actually come on board too, and I wanted to share this. And as we were building our Google business profile, there was some reviews that are available there, but he wanted a few more. And so he asked us, do you have a client that an existing client that I could call and talk to them about their experience and just get a personal testimony of them working with you over the years? Sure, no problem. So we found a couple of clients that were in maybe a similar stage of life or with similar needs for their financial portfolio and set them up, So obviously it's a little bit of a biased avenue for testimonial or referral because it's an existing client, but it's another resource, and we were happy to do that. So that might be something you'd be interested in as well.
Yeah, and even just getting that referral or that testimonial, that advisor has at least one raving fan, right? They have at least one person who they can say, yes, this person likes what I do, which is a great confirmation. Right. So the next few that we have are a little more, I guess, the next level of questions. Not that they're more important. I think they're probably less important, but just it's a good fit. So the first one, I'll put two of them together. One is investment philosophy. How do you approach investing? What is the advisor, what are they trying to do? And then the other one being tax strategy. How do those fit? What's your perspective on those? And letting the advisor just tell you, you don't have to know anything about this. You just ask those questions. And, they may say, well, we're always trying to beat the market. We make trades every day and we're just moving and trying to be better. Others might say, investing, we're not trying to beat anything. We just want to give you a solid portfolio that's going to meet the goals you need in your future. So we pick some assets, we get it locked in, we do periodic changes, but otherwise we're just letting it run and let the market do its thing. Very different approaches. And some people may relate to one or the other. Some advisor firms are into crypto, they're into gold trading, they're into all sorts of things. And if that's what you want, wonderful. Have that conversation. If it's not what you want, that's wonderful too. I think, but just having that conversation. And the similar with tax. We have some clients who understand that taxes are part of life and they're going to pay some, and we move forward. Others that if they could pay no taxes or minimize their taxes, they would move heaven and earth just to avoid taxes. And you want an advisor that matches what you feel, right? So if you have really struggled with the idea of paying more taxes and your advisor also struggles with that, great, that might be a good fit.
Or if they can meet you where where you are, and understand exactly your perspective on risk, on return, on tax planning, et cetera.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. So the last one is kind of a little bit of a group that we had. We talked about the experience they have, the referrals they have, the testimonials they have. I mean, I think it's part of taking all this together after you finish that meeting, stepping back and saying, man, do I want this person in my life? Am I willing to pay them the fees I'm going to need to pay them to get the advice I want to get from them? And they're the best fit. And if you only talk to one person, right, the answer to that might be, well, I need them.
I don't know. Yeah.
But if you can take the time to talk to 2, maybe 3 different advisors and then be able to compare, I think it will become obvious to a lot of folks to say, oh, if I work with this firm, this is going to be what my future looks like. This is how I'm going to relate to them. Whereas if I work with this firm over here, it's going to be quite different. And I think reaching out and not just saying, 2 advisors at the same firm, don't just meet with them, but meet with multiple firms and get a perspective of what they would do for you. And
how often you would meet with them, what sort of communication you would expect to receive from them, apart from maybe a monthly newsletter. Can I call you anytime I want? Or if something comes up, do we meet quarterly or twice a year or once a year? There are a lot of different benefits. And I think that setting those expectations right from the beginning is so important.
Yep. I had a friend ask, how do I know if my advisor is doing a good job? And we kind of thought through that a little bit, but said it's not just, what's the stock return? It's not just what does this look like? It's really sitting down with this type of list and saying, what do I want them to do for me? And are they doing that?
Yeah.
And if they're providing all those needs you have, wonderful. They're doing a great job for you. If you just feel lacking, you always have to bring them ideas. They never bring you ideas. If you just feel like there's a gap that you don't understand, then yeah, maybe they're not serving you the way you need to be served, or maybe you've outgrown them. That's not uncommon for someone to be a good start. But as your life develops and gets more complex, you need an advisor that's a little more complex. So feeling through that.
Well, I hope this has been helpful to some of our listeners. And if you have any questions, or if you'd like to come in and sit down with us, we'd love to. Our first appointments are always on us, and we'd love to meet you and answer your questions. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap us up for today. Thank you so much for listening. We have a few more things to let you know about before we go. Podcast reviews really help us to serve more people and get this information into the hands of the people who need it. Please leave us a review. Even if it's not 5 stars, we welcome the feedback.
And we invite you to let us know what topics you would like to hear more about, or what would benefit the people in your life who you're closest to. We have more resources online. Those resources are designed to help you share this great information easily with people in your life. To access those resources, please visit TrichordAdvisors.com.
Often we hear from clients that they wish they had talked to us sooner. If that's you, we'd be thrilled to see how financial planning can benefit your life. Email us at contact@TrichordAdvisors.com, or simply click on the link in the show notes.
This show was produced by Graham Gardner at Model FA. Find out more about how to create a podcast for your financial planning business by visiting modelfa.com. We love creating content that's useful, resourceful, and maybe even a little entertaining. We want to make this mega universe of financial topics and advice applicable and helpful to your life.
Remember, at Trichord Advisors, we are your future's best ally.